Every Soviet and Russian military helicopter ever built, from Cold War scouts to modern assault machines. Subscribe for more videos. Let's begin. The pioneers, proving helicopters could win wars. Mi-1 Hind, the mass production beginning. The Soviet Air Force fielded the Mi-1 as their first mass-produced military helicopter starting in 1950 across scout, liaison, and medical evacuation roles. This simple three-seat machine proved the USSR could industrialize helicopter production at scale overnight. Based on American designs, but built in Soviet factories, over 1,000 were produced. The Mi-1 established rotary-wing aviation as a legitimate military capability rather than experimental curiosity, forcing every subsequent Soviet military doctrine to account for vertical mobility. Mi-24 Hind, the armed assault transport. Soviet forces operated the Mi-4 as a fully armed assault transport from 1953, capable of moving entire squads directly on a hot battlefield while providing suppressive fire. The Soviets watched Americans use helicopters for casualty evacuation in Korea and decided to build something that could also shoot back. The Mi-4 carried 14 troops or external weapons, including machine guns and rockets. When Western forces were moving squads, the Soviets were moving platoons with gunfire support. Over 3,500 were built. Kamov Ka-10 had, the naval coaxial pioneer. The Soviet Navy deployed the Ka-10 on warships as a compact shipborne scout from 1950, exploiting Kamov's signature coaxial rotor design, eliminating the tail rotor entirely. Coaxial rotors meant smaller deck footprint on cruisers and destroyers. The Soviets figured out that eliminating the tail rotor solved shipboard operations before Western navies even started thinking about the problem. The Ka-10 established Kamov's coaxial philosophy that would define Soviet naval aviation for the next 70 years. Kamov Ka-15 Hind, the submarine hunter. Soviet naval aviation deployed the Ka-15 for anti-submarine warfare and utility operations from 1956, operating from cruisers and destroyers across the North Atlantic. This tiny twin-rotor platform hunting American submarines in freezing waters represented one of the most underrated Cold War capabilities. The Ka-15 proved that compact coaxial helicopters could perform serious combat missions from pitching ship decks in conditions that would ground conventional helicopters. Kamov Ka-18 Hawk, the medical rescue. Soviet military medical units operated the Ka-18 as compact medical evacuation and utility platform, pulling casualties from tight locations fixed-wing aircraft could never reach. Small, coaxial, and absurdly practical, the Ka-18 demonstrated that Soviet designers valued simplicity and deployability above sophistication. Built in limited numbers, but deployed extensively, it established combat medical evacuation as standard Soviet battlefield doctrine rather than specialized mission. Transport dominance, moving entire armies. Mi-2 Hoplite, the Eastern Bloc workhorse. Soviet and Warsaw Pact forces operated the Mi-2 for light utility, armed reconnaissance, and anti-tank missile duties starting in 1965. Poland manufactured this helicopter under license for the entire Eastern Bloc. The Soviets were so confident in the design they outsourced production and still got exactly what they wanted. Over 5,400 were built, equipping military forces from East Germany to Cuba with identical capabilities. Mi-6 Hook, the flying freight train. The Soviet armed forces fielded the Mi-6 as the world's largest helicopter when it entered service in 1957. Capable of lifting 12 tons internally or 20 tons externally. This is not a helicopter. This is a flying freight train. The Mi-6 could carry entire artillery batteries, vehicles, or 90 combat troops simultaneously. It set payload records that stood for decades and proved that helicopters could replace fixed-wing transports for tactical mobility in the Soviet military doctrine. Mi-8 Hip, the most produced military helicopter. Soviet armed forces and virtually every Russian-aligned military globally have operated the Mi-8 in every conceivable role since 1967. Over 17,000 have been built, making it the single most produced military helicopter in rotary-wing aviation history. Assault transport, gunship, command post, electronic warfare. If a military mission exists, someone has done it with a Mi-8. Still in production today, still flying combat missions, still refusing to become obsolete. Mi-17 Hind, the export evolution. Russian forces and over 60 countries worldwide operate the Mi-17, an upgraded export evolution of the Mi-8 in assault transport and special operations from 1981. Two turboshaft engines, more power, better hot and high performance, and it is flying combat missions right now in multiple active conflicts. The Mi-17 took a proven design and made it better, then exported it so widely that nearly every military helicopter pilot on Earth has either flown one or fought against one. Mi-10 Hark, the flying crane. Soviet construction and military engineering units deployed the Mi-10 flying crane to airlift enormous loads no other aircraft could touch starting in 1965. Imagine a helicopter with giant landing legs flying over construction sites, placing fully assembled radar stations on mountaintops. The Mi-10's entire mission was lifting things too heavy for conventional helicopters: artillery, vehicles, prefabricated buildings. Only 55 were built, but each one could do work that would require hundreds of conventional cargo flights. Naval specialists, hunting submarines from ships. Mi-14 Hind, the amphibious boat hull. Soviet naval aviation operated the Mi-14 as boat-hull amphibious helicopter dedicated to anti-submarine warfare and mine countermeasures from 1976. A helicopter with a boat hull that could land on ocean surfaces to deploy sonar, hunt submarines, and take off again. This is one of the most specialized and terrifying platforms ever built. The Mi-14 could float, swim, and fly, three capabilities Western naval helicopters never attempted to combine. Kamov Ka-25 Hormone, the destroyer scout. The Soviet Navy's surface combatant fleet deployed the Ka-25 from destroyer and cruiser decks to hunt submarines and perform search and rescue operations from 1967. The coaxial rotors meant it could operate in savage crosswinds of the North Sea and North Atlantic without tail clearance that would destroy conventional helicopters on pitching decks. Over 460 were built, equipping every major Soviet surface combatant with organic helicopter capability. Kamov Ka-27 Helix, the primary sub-hunter. Russian Navy currently operates the Ka-27 from major surface combatants, including cruisers and destroyers, as primary anti-submarine warfare platform since 1982. Bigger, faster, more capable than the Ka-25 it replaced, carrying dipping sonar, torpedoes, and depth charges. The Ka-27 remains one of the most capable naval helicopters globally, still hunting submarines in the Atlantic, Pacific, and Arctic simultaneously. Kamov Ka-28 Helix, the export package. Multiple navies worldwide, including China, India, and Vietnam, operate the Ka-28, the export-ready version of the Ka-27, as their primary shipborne anti-submarine platform. The Soviets packaged their best submarine hunting technology into export variant and spread it across 3 oceans. The Ka-28 proves Soviet naval helicopter doctrine went genuinely global, with Russian technology protecting foreign fleets from underwater threats. Kamov Ka-29 Helix, the naval assault. Russian naval infantry operated the Ka-29 as dedicated naval assault helicopter, combining heavy firepower with ability to operate from amphibious assault ships since 1985. Rockets, gun pods, anti-tank missiles, and ability to operate from pitching ship decks in rough seas. The Ka-29 represents what happens when you take attack helicopter concept and make it seaborne for amphibious warfare. Kamov Ka-31 Helix, the airborne radar. Russian Navy and Indian Navy operate the Ka-31 as airborne early warning platform, deploying massive rotating antenna from shipborne helicopter since 1995. A helicopter that unfolds giant radar dish mid-flight to detect incoming missiles and aircraft below fleet radar horizon is one of the most insane engineering solutions in Cold War aviation. And it actually works, providing carrier battle groups with over-the-horizon detection. Attack platforms, the flying gunships. Mi-24 Hind, the flying infantry fighting vehicle. Soviet forces and over 50 militaries worldwide have operated the Mi-24 Hind as the definitive assault gunship since 1972. 8 troops in the back, anti-tank missiles on wings, chin gun forward. The Mi-24 is the only helicopter in history designed to both deliver squad of soldiers and immediately provide heavy fire support. That concept is absolutely insane and absolutely brilliant. Over 2,500 built. Mi-24 Hind, the export warrior. Export customers across Africa, Asia, and Middle East operated the Mi-25, the dedicated export attack variant of Mi-24 in live combat from 1974. The Mi-25 saw action in Angola, Nicaragua, Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria. This is one of the most combat-proven helicopter export packages in history, and it turned entire regional conflicts by giving smaller nations heavy attack helicopter capability. Mi-25 Hind, the upgraded legend. Russian forces and multiple export customers operate the Mi-35, an upgraded Mi-24 series rebranded for export in active combat from 1989. Updated sensors, better missiles, night-capable avionics, and proven airframe with decades of combat experience. The Mi-35 took a legend and made it scarier, extending the Hind's operational life into the 21st century. Kamov Ka-50 Black Shark, the single-seat radical. Russian Army Aviation fielded the Ka-50 as the world's first and only single-seat production attack helicopter since 1995. Single pilot, coaxial rotors, ejection seat. Yes, an attack helicopter with ejection seat. The Ka-50 is so far outside conventional design, thinking it almost does not seem real. The pilot operates all weapons and flight controls alone using advanced automation that Western forces did not trust until decades later. Kamov Ka-52 Alligator, the two-seat evolution. Russian Army Aviation operates the Ka-52 Alligator as primary two-seat all-weather attack helicopter since 2011, fielded in Syria and Ukraine. Side-by-side seating, coaxial rotors, helmet-mounted targeting, and ejection system for both crew. The Ka-52 is the only two-seat attack helicopter on Earth with coaxial rotors and represents the most capable platform Russia currently fields in active combat. Kamov Ka-52K Katran, the naval strike. Russian Navy operates the Ka-52K Katran as dedicated naval attack helicopter derived from Ka-52 designed to deploy from Mistral-class assault ships since 2015. Folding rotor blades, reinforced corrosion protection, and full Ka-52 weapon suite adapted for maritime strike. Built to launch from ships and annihilate coastal defenses, though the Mistral carriers were never delivered due to sanctions. Mi-28 Havoc, the dedicated tank killer. Russian Army Aviation fielded the Mi-28 as dedicated tank-killing attack helicopter with no troop transport capability whatsoever, entering service in 1996. The Russians looked at the Hind and said the passenger compartment is wasted space. They removed it, filled the airframe with weapon systems instead, and called it the Havoc. Pure attack helicopter philosophy without compromise. Mi-28 Night Hunter, the all-weather killer. Russian Army Aviation operates the Mi-28 Night Hunter as definitive all-weather night-capable attack helicopter in current order of battle, entering full service in 2009. Mast-mounted radar above rotor hub means the Mi-28 can hide behind tree line, peek its radar over top, designate targets, and fire without exposing crew. Next-level battlefield survivability in modern attack helicopter. Heavy lift giants, moving mountains. Mi-26 Halo, the largest helicopter ever. Russian armed forces, foreign militaries, and civilian operators operate the Mi-26 as the largest and heaviest production helicopter ever built anywhere on Earth since 1983. 20 metric tons payload, cargo hold the size of C-130 Hercules fuselage, flying on 2 turboshaft engines. The Mi-26 makes every other heavy-lift helicopter look like a toy. Only 32 built, but each one is irreplaceable. Mi-38, the next-generation transport. Russian armed forces have taken limited delivery of Mi-38 as next-generation medium transport helicopter intended to replace aging Mi-8 and Mi-17 fleets since 2014. Glass cockpit, modern avionics, higher payload than Mi-8, and designed from ground up for Arctic and extreme temperature operations. The Mi-38 is Russia's bet on what medium transport helicopter looks like for next 50 years. Specialized platforms, the unusual missions. Kamov Ka-60 Kasatka, the light scout. Russian military special operations and reconnaissance units operated limited numbers of Ka-60 Kasatka, as light utility and scout platform since 2002. A Kamov design breaking from Bureau's coaxial tradition using conventional single-main rotor. The Ka-60 was built for quiet, fast, low observable infiltration work. The fact Kamov abandoned their signature coaxial layout says everything about what this mission demanded: stealth over Soviet tradition. Kamov Ka-62, the civil derivative. Russian civilian operators and some military units operate Ka-62 as civil derivative of Ka-60 scout platform for utility and light transport missions, demonstrating that even specialized military designs could transition to civilian roles when designed properly. Limited production numbers, but represents Kamov's attempt to compete in commercial helicopter market using military-derived technology. Experimental and limited production. Mi-24 Hind, the training platform. Soviet and Russian forces operated limited numbers of Mi-34 as dedicated training helicopter from 1986. Purpose-built for flight training rather than adapting combat helicopters. The Mi-34 represented Soviet recognition that proper pilot training required dedicated platforms rather than using frontline combat helicopters for instruction. Limited production with only 120 built. Kamov Ka-126, the rescue specialist. Russian emergency services and limited military units operate Ka-126 as dedicated search and rescue and medical evacuation platform since 2015. Modern avionics, medical equipment integration, and coaxial rotors for confined area operations. The Ka-126 represents modern Russian helicopter design philosophy applied to humanitarian and rescue missions rather than pure combat roles. Conclusion. The Soviet and Russian rotary-wing legacy spans from tiny scout helicopter in 1950 to flying crane the size of cargo aircraft. Every machine was built with ruthless purpose, mass production, battlefield dominance, total operational flexibility.